huge good evening, everybody, and I really appreciate you all convening tonight. It's been a whirlwind 3 or 4 years, actually, since the first book was published. And off the back of that, I've been asked to speak all over the world in different locations and different environments. And obviously, the people I've actually picked up on social networking, I'll rephrase that, not picked up, met with and connected with, has just been out in the stratosphere in the last few years. But it's actually interesting because wherever I go for the first time, when I meet somebody, they always say to me, "I thought you'd have been taller." And I always mumble below my breath and I say, "Yeah, and I thought you'd have been thinner." But I guess I've learned throughout my life, and certainly in the last few years as well, and what I write about and what I say and speak and consult in, it's not really what people say that matters the most, it's what they don't say. And what I mean by that is, we never really know what's around the corner, or what's on the horizon, and what's behind the scenes, until it actually hits us smack in the face and it comes out of left field. And artificial intelligence and robotics is exactly that kind of subject that none of us really thought much about until really the last year or so when it's hit the mainstream press. And the idea of this book has been in my mind for the last 2-3 years actually, but I've put off writing it until a time when I felt that the momentum and the motion and those people who are really genuinely interested in doing something about this technology are going to take it forward and make a difference in the world. So this book is very much about being prepared, preparing you in your life and businesses to be future-proof in going forward and embracing this kind of new technology. The stuff I talk about in the first book is therefore innovated in the second book in lots of different ways. And in this room tonight, I'll just point out a few people because I've been inspired by a lot of the individuals that have actually attended tonight. And the first person I'd like to point out is Dr. Peter Waggett here from IBM, Head of Emerging Technology. And I like to boast that he was a rocket scientist. He told me to keep that quiet, but in my usual brash style, I just have to brag about it because I think it's fantastic. But Peter inspired me hugely. And I say that because Peter was kind enough to invite me down to IBM this time last year. Now this was January 2014. And this was while I was gathering my ideas for the second book, because I knew it was going to have a huge impact and could have a huge positive impact on all the professions and society, economy, policy, you name it, across the whole world, if it was rolled out in a sensible, controlled kind of way. And Peter kindly, he spent half a day with me actually, which was really great. And he basically took me into this room with a guy with a white lab coat, and he said, "All this stuff you've been talking about, Chrissie, it's perfectly possible. And it might even happen sooner than everybody's prepared for. So we have to be careful how we actually introduce it to the market at certain stages, because it's quite frightening." At which point he clamped this big cap on my head with all these little gizmos coming out of it. And he said, "Right, I want you to focus on this computer and move that square to the horizon." So I did that, and this square moved on the computer. And he said, "Now I want you to pull it to a stop, gently." So I did. He said, "Great." He said, "Now bring the square back from the horizon and stop it gently in front of yourself." So I focused on this other thing again, and it happened. He said, "Right." He said, "Now we're going to connect this computer up to this little car on the floor." And he said, "Well, I'm going to show you what happens." So he said, "Right, now concentrate on moving the square towards the computer to the horizon and see what happens." And I did, and this little car shot off and nearly bashed against the wall, and you name it. And he said, "Okay, well, let's control that a bit better then, Chrissie. Try bringing the car back and do it to a slow stop," which I did by focusing on this computer screen. And basically, he said, "Chrissie said, what you've actually done there is the whole idea about artificial intelligence and self-driving cars, self-driving vehicle." Now, the reason I'm sharing this with you is this was January last year. It hadn't hit the mainstream press until about May 2014, when the whole media was rife with the potential of self-driving cars. But then there was the issue about when are they going to be out there, when is it going to hit commerce, when it's actually going to be in the public domain that we're going to have driverless cars on the streets. And if you look at the transition of how long it actually took to get from the R&D that IBM had been doing for many years prior to the point at which the press gets hold of it, and then it's actually happening, it's a very, 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 very short period of time. As we have self-driving shuttles, we're having self-driving taxis. In America, they're already on the roads, they'll be on the roads in the UK this year. So my point about this is also, I write about in the book, I think we have to be very careful because There's a lot of writers who are very conservative of what they think is going to happen. Great thinkers, great scientists, great engineers, great people in the legal professions, Professor Susskind himself in his predictions, and Giamatti, you name it, and they're all talking about 2025, 2030, in line with what Kurzweil talks about in the progression of artificial intelligence. But I question that, and I question it because I think the human race is much more intelligent and enterprising than we want to give credit for on the surface, because we're not always sure about what's happening behind. And what I mean by that as well is, if we take the Genome Project, when that hit the media and the scientists, they actually said, oh, it's going to take us 100 years to crack the DNA code. Do you know how long it actually took? 8 years. So when people talk to me about the development of cognitive intelligent machines, iterative machines, and intuitive and all the rest of it, and artificial intelligence and robots moving from intelligent machine systems doing data analysis and decision analysis, and then moving on to having emotion and thinking and reasoning and judgment, I actually believe that could be sooner than later. And I think I'd like to be prepared for that sooner rather than later. And this is what this book really does. It's about, as I say, preparing us. And you can choose to ignore it, you can choose to poo-poo it. Some people say it's outrageous, it's outlandish, it's totally incomprehensible, you'll either love it or hate it. Yes, but I wrote this book mainly for you, and I say you because the people in this room, you tend to be the pioneers. You're the people who are already seeking and thinking and have the intelligence and the contacts and the wherewithal, some of you as well. But I've got the inclination to actually do something about it. So I actually focus in the book very much on, yes, the what is it that is likely to happen in the near future and the distant future as well, alongside a lot of other great thinkers who are actually quoted in the book as well and kindly contributed to it. So the interviews that I've had with them, including Peter, including Jazz Razul here as well, Jazz at the front. Just put your hand up, Jazz. I'd like to bring Jazz up because Jazz is a scientist. And the question that most people have been asking me in the last year or two is, what's the next big thing in social, Chrissie? Social media, human behaviour, human relationships, psychology, behaviour, you name it, because that is the underlying thing. We can all talk about what's going to happen in the legal world or the professions or banking or whatever, but it all comes down to attitude and the will to change and the wanting to change. And keeping our humanness as we go forward as the machines start to infiltrate our family lives, our social lives, our working lives, and you know it. Jazz has been working with huge organisations across the world. He's even been in Africa recently with some of their, is it Africa, Jazz? Is it Africa, or is it, where was it you've been working with?
Czech Republic, sorry.
Yeah, yes. So, you know, what he has actually got, Jazz, if you're interested, go and have a chat with him later. I'll give you the money later, by the way, we'll sort it out. But you know, there's stuff in this book that is really forward-thinking stuff. And it's not just for me, and I would like to stress that, because this isn't all about me, it isn't. The contributors in this book are the top end in their game as well. I mean, obviously, some of you will have heard of Richard Birch, who's a fantastic pricing strategist. He's written some books for us as well. Peter's in there as well, Jazz, and lots of others. So it's worth dipping into just to see what they have to say as well. But not just the what, as in if I can predict or believe is what is going to happen. I prefer to focus on why and how we're going to be successful going forward, and how we can be confident in that based on the insights and tips that I share, based on the research that I've actually done and the interviews with all these other people, and actually joining the dots and connecting those dots. So, people always ask me, Chrissie, if you're out there and as a consultant though, we have consultants banging on our door every minute of the day, and they all have something to offer. Some of the consultants are in this room today. And I would actually say that's a good thing, because it takes your thinking well out of the box. It gives depth, it gives breadth, it gives their experience and expertise that they can bring to the table. Because even if we think we understand about ourselves, if we understand about our clients and prospects, the market, and even our likely future, we can all benefit from a helping hand and a helping thought. And that's what consultants can bring to all of the professions and industries in every respect. I actually do believe that, as sorry, was that
Jemima.
As Jemima kind of said, I do believe the dawn of robot law is actually here. And it's not just robot law, it's robot banking, it's robot real estate, it's robot marketing, we've got automated marketing right now. And what used to be known as B2B and B2C is actually going to be business to robot or human to robot and robot to robot within 10, 15, 20 years, without a doubt. It's actually here now. A lot of people using Siri and Cortana, artificial intelligence in our mobile devices and what have you. And recently, some law students have actually come up with the first artificial intelligent attorney, basically called Ross, which, yes, probably again, that actually looks at, uses human language, basically. So everything that Peter had kind of hinted at and said, you can't talk about that yet, Chrissie, but yes, it is in line and it is happening. I often wonder what else is Peter up to, basically. And I suspect a lot more than that we've read about. And that being the case, I wrote this book. Because my question to you is that if you have read in the mainstream press all about the threat of jobs as such, employment in the next 20 years, that robots are going to take over blue-collar working as such, I actually think the biggest threat is the white-collar working. Because it's not just going to be the blue-collar, it will be the white-collar, it will be the professions. And in the efficiency, because legal efficiency, banking efficiency, technology efficiency, real estate efficiency, you name it, we're a demanding race, a human race who want to improve and want efficiencies in one way or another. So, my question to you is, what are you going to do about it? If you want to take control of your own livelihood, your own career, and to future-proof your career and your livelihood, and your business, and not just yours, because, forgive me, but I have to say this, when I do consult with professionals, a lot of them tend to say to me, but I don't care because I'm going to be retired in 5 years, or 2, or 8, or 10 even. And I said, you probably won't have a job like yours within 10 years because it's going to change rapidly. And unless you skill up and you innovate or reinvent yourself or get on board with all this stuff, that role is not going to exist. And when you think your money is safe or X, Y, and Z, it'll actually just fall away like a bird crisp within a short period of time. At which point I start to listen up and say, well, what do you mean by that? But I'll let you read about it in the book, okay? I'd like to finish just with one statement. Well, it's a quote by Graham Greene, who famously said, eventually you have to open up the door and let the future in. So my question is to you is, in 3 little words, are you ready? And for all the judges and lawyers in the room, I'd say, if you have any reasonable doubt, my lord, I have 3 more little words for you in the solution. And that is simply, buy my book. And with that, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to the people that contributed to the book. A lot of them can't be here tonight because they're so famous and so brilliant and so busy that they've got other talks and things to be at. But they do wish you well because they were party to this as well, and they did ask me to stress that they wanted to convey that. So I hope I've done them justice in what they've shared and want to share with you. To the people that supported me through it, because you're quite right, I think I approached ARC in 2012. Yes, the first book was out December 2010, and I think it was partway through 2012 I said I've got this idea for the book. And it might be a little bit early because usually you don't write another book within 3 or 4 years. I said, but it's important now because the more time people have got to prepare for this, it's going to hit. They could hit the ground running and they can be competitive, they could be the first movers. And I said, well, Chrissie, just hold your horses a bit. Just need a bit more time, give it 6 months or so. I said, okay. And then when we talked about it, they said, are you still keen to do it? I said, yes, the answer. Well, can you turn it around by November 2013? I said, no, not a chance. Too busy. It's not going to happen. And then at which point it was, can you do by April? Yeah, of course I can, no problem. At which point, January, February came, I thought, there's no way I can write this book in the next 3 months. And at which point I also realised that there was more to be said. And I thought, I need to catch up and get as up to date as possible once it goes to publication. And then, usual reasons, life gets in the way. Lifeline as well as Driveline, and you name it. So eventually, they said, Chrissie, are you going to do this damned book? And I said, of course. So I actually committed and said, right, November it is. And I'm hugely appreciative for you for really nagging me, which you did, God bless, to actually get it done. All right, so, and I'm hugely grateful for organising this tonight and everything that you've done for the first and the second, and no doubt the third, whenever that will be. And without embarrassment as well, I'd like to thank my lover, who was stood over here on the left, because he was hugely inspirational, and I will admit open-heartedly as well, that the dedication of the book is to my lover Russ, and that's simply because he was hugely patient, because of course I'm not an impatient person, of course. And I did yell at him one morning, not in my usual pussycat terms, but my more tigress terms, and I said, "Will you shut that? I'm trying to write." At which point he said, "Oh, really sorry, really sorry, really sorry." And in fact, the dedication is something similar in there, without the naughty words and the naughtiness, of course, because it's a professional book, and even though it's naughty in lots of ways, we've kept the language pretty, clear of any kind of abusive nature. But I am human, like all of you, therefore it's written in that style. It's a nice, gentle read, it's an easy read, and it's not complicated, and I hope I've tried to write in a concise and clear way that practices what it preaches as well. It is unique. And finally, the most important people tonight are you. Because basically, none of this happens. My reason for doing this is you. As I say, quite genuinely, it's a hell of a task, it's a burden, it's a real pain in the ass actually writing a book. You commit to it, but when you do it, it's a slog. When you're trying to do your day-to-day things in everything, life, business, you name it, actually sitting down and getting done is not an easy thing. But if you have a vision and a mission and a true strategy and a message that you want to get out there, you can actually get yourself down to it to do it. So it's all of you that inspired me, because I know that the message in this will be a benefit to you all. So thank you very much. All I have to say now is I've done my bit for the evening. I've done this bloody book. It's out there now. I don't really want to look at it too much, but I would love to, if possible, if each and every one of you at some point before you wander off, A, make sure you've drank the place out, because I'm sure Herbert Smith can afford it. Without a doubt. At least do come and say hello to me, because I think at least 50% of you in this room I haven't actually met face to face, even though we have conversed on social networks for the last few years as well. So please do, because I wanted you to be here tonight for that purpose. I wish I could say whether you've actually come from around the corner in London or from Yorkshire. We've got Ajaz Ahmed, my good friend, the entrepreneur over there as well. We've got a lady from Dubai. Is that you, Deepa? There you are. I'd like to say she's come especially for this tonight, but I think she's got business tomorrow. But hey, it was fortuitous anyway.
The only evening I'm here.
There you go. Well, I hope it lives up to your expectations. So please come and have a chat with me. That'd be lovely. So yes, please do come and say hello. And if you are intrigued, have a flick through the book, of course. And if you do decide to purchase this evening, I'd be more than happy to put a nice little personal note in there for you that you can probably sell on eBay tomorrow. Or wait till you die and it'll be worth a fortune, whichever way. Okay, so thank you very much.